There, you're going to have to also now say that it's okay for me to record. So you need to, there's some sort of screen that's going to pop up on your computer to tell you that, that it's okay for me to record. Okay. And then that means also that if somebody did not attend this, then we can share the recording with them. So as I said, I'm Kathy Adams Clark. I have been leading tours through Strabo Tours since 2004. And I have been visiting since 2004. And I've been visiting Costa Rica since 2004, taking groups or doing my own personal tours. To tell you a little bit about Strabo Photo Tour Collection, just in case you don't know them, Jackie from Strabo has been in the travel industry for a good 30 plus years.
I know, it's terrible.
So who said terrible? So anyway, she said, so she's got plenty of experience. Strabo is a small tour group. We don't do large tours. It's only very small groups, usually about anywhere from 10 to 12 is the maximum. We do stay in boutique hotels. And by boutique hotels, I mean hotels that you might not have found just in your regular research. And I'll tell a story on Pat Sheets, who's here this evening, that one time we drove up to our hotel in Costa Rica in the van, and Pat yelled out from the back of the bus, "Now this is a Strabo hotel." So Strabo hotels are kind of known for being really kind of neat and small. Sometimes we are the only group in the hotel because it might only take 10 guests or 8 guests. So it means that many times we're in hotels that you might not have found in another place. I'm going to mute you, Jane. There you went. Strabo does go to international destinations, Asia, all the way through around the world. And one of the beautiful things about Strabo tours is we do use local guides. And some of these local guides, like Ishmael in Morocco and Connie in Western Ireland, we've used them for years. Willie in Costa Rica. So these guides know Strabo tours as well as they know the local scenery and the local culture. And then we have a photography guide, of course, that goes along. That's me. Karen Schulman's here with Jeb as photo guides. And then Strabo also does different types of trips, like watercolor trips and painting trips as well. And so it's not just photo tours, just in case you've got anybody who might like to do something like that. And then they also will coordinate a friend or family trip for you. So if you think after seeing Costa Rica tonight that, whoa, I'd like to take the family and the grandkids to Costa Rica, if you've got a group, 6 people, 8 people, 10 people, 12 people, then Strabo could also coordinate that tour for you so that you don't have to do all the arrangements on that. And then, of course, the website is www.strabotours.com. So history of Costa Rica. Let's talk about Costa Rica. The history of Costa Rica. Costa Rica has never been conquered. What happened when Christopher Columbus stopped by Costa Rica back in that 1492 is he looked at it and he reported back to Spain that there wasn't anything there to look at. Didn't have any gold to speak of. And so they just kept right on going. So it was colonized by farmers with small tracts of land, starting in the beginning with coffee, where coffee plants were distributed to the people who were there. And then they developed a co-op to send the coffee back to Spain. So it has been founded with the mindset of sort of that we're all in this together, a socialist type mentality, as opposed to the United States is that pull them up by your bootstraps, you know, that we always talk about. Costa Rica's got more of that familiar attitude to it. And there is free and compulsory education throughout the country. They do have democratic elections. And one of the treats on the last trip that I took to Costa Rica is last Sunday before last. I got to sit with my guide and my driver in the bar late at night and watch the election results coming in from the Costa Rican presidential election. And that was a hoot to watch, because especially if I've been through various cities of Costa Rica. They do not have an army. and they abolished their army in the 40s and put all of that money that they would have put into their army into clean water, healthcare, and education. So it is a country a little bit different than what we're going to see in the rest of Latin America.
So my question is, why do if they have no army, how do they protect themselves?
We kind of help them out with that a little bit. Yeah. So they don't have an army, but we kind of help them in many ways. And then they can serve in the United States Army, for instance, and if they want to, and work toward the benefits as well as citizenship. So booking your trip to Costa Rica, because I know I've got some people in here who aren't associated with Strabo Tours, some invitations that I've extended, but you can book everything yourself. So if you wanted to just do like you would do a trip here in the United States, go online, find a couple of hotels that you wanted to stay in, rent your car, you could do that. It's pretty easy to do. Most of the hotels in Costa Rica have a well-functioning website. And so you could easily go in and book yourself. What I would encourage you to do is book your excursions. You know, if you wanted to take the family zip lining or horseback riding or bird watching or whitewater rafting or something like that, book that excursion later when you get to the hotel, because every hotel that I've ever been in Costa Rica has a connection with people in the local area who lead the tours to the coffee plantation or lead the bird watching tours or lead the whitewater rafting tours. And they'll come and they'll pick you up and that type of thing. You can book an entire tour package that has all the excursions pre-booked in it. And so this would be where you wanted like a family adventure tour or something like that. And all the excursions are already pre-booked. Why I say, why don't you think about booking the excursions once you get there, is that sometimes you might find that once you get to that hotel, you would like to relax and maybe not do all that rush once you get settled into a hotel. Because some of these hotels are definitely worth staying at in Costa Rica. There is a company called Horizontes, and I've given you their name on the slide. They're the oldest tour company in Costa Rica, and they are the ones that Jackie and I use to coordinate all of the tours that we go to in Costa Rica. Horizontes can book these family tours for you if it were just like 3 of you, or maybe a couple, or maybe you want to give a trip to Costa Rica to a young couple that's getting married and you want to give it to them as a honeymoon gift. Horizontes has those type of trips. And so they're pretty easy to just purchase. There are group tours all over from all kinds of different places all over the world that go to Costa Rica. And those group tours usually always have a specialty, such as family adventures, yoga retreats, cooking, eco travel, fishing, whatever. So it just because it's not necessary to take a general group tour to Costa Rica, unless that's just really what you like to do. If you want to do something a little bit more special, like a hiking tour or adventure trip, or like we do with the photos, bird photography trips, then know that there's a lot of different specialty tours that you can do in Costa Rica. And you might want to, because it is a really neat country for that. I don't know about you, but one of the things that I always look at when I travel to a foreign country is what's the food going to taste like? Now, good thing in Costa Rica is that the food is amazing. 20 years ago, when I first started going there, the food was a little on the bland side and consisted mostly of rice and beans and some things like that. But now we're seeing hotels that are coming up with more and more and more really neat.
Kathy,
Would you mute?
Kathy, something you were echoing somehow.
Are you muted?
Yeah.
I
There
think
we go.
somebody's unmuted.
Yeah, I just asked somebody to mute. There we go. Okay. Are we better on the echo? Okay.
Yes.
So we get food now that is divine and wonderful, and especially in some of the boutique hotels where the chefs, such as this one, grow all of their own food on site. So almost everything that we ate at one of the recent hotels was grown on site in the greenhouses. Then, you know, we get these wonderful coffee, of course, because that's their specialty in the country. And so the food that we're seeing now in Costa Rica is much more creative and much more innovative, especially in the small hotels, because the locals there are affluent enough that they're staying in these hotels. They want good food. And then the tourism business obviously is bringing in a lot of people who also want equally good food. So don't be afraid of the food, because the food really, really is very good. The water also out of the tap is drinkable. And that's one of their things, is that they've got clean water throughout the country. I love it because that means we don't have to, you know, we can still use bottled water if we feel like it, but that means that we don't have to use bottled water to drink our tea, or excuse me, to brush our teeth and that type of thing. So the water out of the tap is drinkable. For those of you that might consider traveling with small children to Costa Rica, this is, again, a really strong benefit, because the children can drink out of the tap and we can drink the water that's served to us on the table, as opposed to worrying about gastrointestinal distress, even though that does happen when you travel, but we can drink the water. And that is a really good thing when we're traveling, because we can stay hydrated. Tourism is a huge part of the Costa Rican economy, and as a result, they know how to do this in Costa Rica. So if you are hiring a transport to travel around, or in our case, when we have a van, it always has the Turismo sticker on the back of it. So if you're picked up to be transported from one hotel to the next, if you're not traveling with some tour group, then you're going to be transported in a vehicle that's got the sticker on it. So they really do understand tourism, and they know how to handle tourists in the country. So we got to talk about COVID too. And I've been to Costa Rica now 5 times since the beginning of COVID. I was there on late February, early March, when we first started finding COVID in the United States, and we started canceling things here in the United States. We were on tour at the time. And so Costa Rica has immediately implemented the protocols for COVID. We do have to wear masks when we're traveling around. You do have to wash your hands with soap and water, and there is soap and water provided before entering any building. So any restaurant, any reception area of a hotel, any shop, any grocery store. My husband Gary and I, on a private trip in July, had our temperature taken by the security guard at the grocery store. So they're very particular about this. And I appreciate that, because that means that I can keep my group safe when we've gone there. And then Gary and I traveled privately and felt perfectly safe the entire time we were there. So there's lots and lots of COVID protocols that have been put into place by Costa Rica. When we're out on the trails, there's you, Ruby, on one of the previous trips. When we're out on the trails and in nature, that means that we can take our masks off. But anytime we're around people in Costa Rica, we always put the masks back on. So it is a country that has taken COVID and COVID protocols seriously. And I appreciate that about it, because it makes me feel a lot safer as a traveler down there. Okay, so that's kind of the basic stuff out of the way. Now, let me take you to the country and show you what the country is like. Costa Rica, if you've never been there, is situated between Nicaragua and Panama on the isthmus, the Central American isthmus. To get there, you would travel, I'm in the Houston area, so that's where the little blue arrow is right there. So from the Houston area, it's a 3.5-hour flight. And a lot of people from from the West Coast travel from the West Coast to the Houston or Dallas area, and then take a flight straight down to Costa Rica from there. So it's a reasonable flight from the United States. For those of you on the East Coast, most people travel through Miami, and then take the flight directly from Miami over to San Jose or Liberia. Some people are starting to go through Orlando and Fort Lauderdale airports in Florida to avoid the Miami airports, but it does give us a different option to go down there. So travel is fairly easy. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of time depending on where you're coming from. And for me as a bird watcher and a bird photographer, the important thing for me about Costa Rica is that there are 903 known species of birds. The United States and Canada have about 800. So Costa Rica has more than the US and Canada put together. And the reason that, Costa Rica has so many bird species is because there are a lot of migrants going to the United States and back, and there are a lot of migrants going to South America and back. And so it gets a good crossover of South American species as well as North American species, or what we consider North American species. They really, most of our birds winter down in Latin America, and so they're not ours. We just have them for the summertime. So it's a great place for doing any sort of bird photography or bird watching. Costa Rica itself is the size of West Virginia. And like West Virginia, Costa Rica is very mountainous. And there are 3 major mountain ranges running through Costa Rica. So you can see them on this map traveling all the way down and up and down through Costa Rica. So it's an incredibly mountainous country, just like West Virginia would be. But if you flatten it, then it has the surface area of Texas. So as my guide, Willie Alfaro, always likes to say, if you ironed Costa Rica, it would be as big as Texas. And if you tried to drive from border to border, the northern border where Liberia is, all the way down to the Panama border, if you were lucky, it would take 7 to 9 hours. And if you tried to drive from Liberia to Limon, east-west or west-east, it would take you about 6 to 8 hours. So one of the things that I encourage you to do if you're going to travel to Costa Rica is not try to see it all at one time. I remember flying into Nova Scotia years ago with my husband, and the guy at immigration asked me where we were going in Nova Scotia. And I told him, oh, we're going to see the whole thing. And I didn't realize that that meant we were going to spend our whole vacation driving. And that's pretty much what you would do if you tried to see the whole Costa Rica in one fell swoop. So what I encourage you to do is see bits and pieces of Costa Rica and then think about going back if you can, rather than trying to see everything, because otherwise you're just going to be driving the entire time that you're there. And that's not fun at all, because the roads are good, but not that good. So let me show you some places. And some of you all have already been to some of these places with me and on previous trips. So let me show you my favorite places on this map. So the San Jose area, the Saguare Mountain area, and I'm going to take you to each one of these as I go through once I start a little bit more into the program. The area right above San Jose in the Central Highlands, the area up around Sierra Paquie, the area around Turialba, the area, there we go, around the coastline, the area down at the Osa Peninsula, the most remote location, the Guanacaste area, and then way up near the Nicaraguan border, we've got another wonderful area up there. And then down around the Arenal area and the Monteverdi area. So if you ask me which are my favorites, there's no way I could tell you one favorite, because each one of these holds a variety of habitats, experiences that make a trip to any one of these areas a great experience. So let me start by offering you just a brief glimpse of the beach environments. So let me show you these. Some of you all I know are beachy people, not bitchy people, beachy people. I'm not much on beaches. It's not one of my favorite habitats to go to. So as a result, I don't spend a lot of time on my tours around the beaches, but there are some beautiful beaches along the Costa Rican coast. Lots of people from the United States have moved down there to take advantage of the beachfront property, but there are some really lovely places along the beaches of Costa Rica. If you're one of those people who likes Marriott's, Hilton's, Hyatt's, the American resort hotels, there are, whoops, I'm sorry, I got going a little too fast there. There are a lot of these type resorts, the Marriotts and the Hiltons and the Hyatts and the Four Seasons and that type thing along the coast of Costa Rica, along the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. So if you like traveling to those type destinations, there are a lot of those along the coastline. There are also other not as well-known resorts along the coastline. And if you're thinking about traveling to Costa Rica with your friends and your family, kids, these resorts along the coast are a fabulous place to take your kids. They're nice and safe in most cases. They're right on the beach. And you look at this picture of this resort and you've got a swing set for the kids, a couple of swing sets for the kids, and then the beach is right there. And the nice thing about these is these are pretty safe for a child environment to travel around. And then you can book all kinds of excursions like, you know, going out into the sea. And I was in one of these due to a flight layover the other day, and they had snorkeling lessons in the swimming pool and scuba diving lessons in the swimming pool and jet skis and all that other stuff. They also have discotheques and casinos and things like that. Once again, not my cup of tea, but that might be the exact place that you're looking for your travels to Costa Rica. These places many times have the zip lining for the family. They have the, you know, entertainment at night for people. And so there's a lot to appeal to different types of people in these beach resorts along the coastline. For me, it's kind of hard to photograph nature when you've got to trace by the swimming pool with all the people trying to sunbathe and be quiet and relax. And, you know, here's my group hovering around a palm tree because we had an anteater in the top of the palm tree. So sometimes these type of hotels are not exactly what I'm looking for my group because we're doing different things than what the regular people are there. But along the coast is a great place to see monkeys and a great place to see toucans and just a great place to enjoy that beach environment if that's what you like. Going into San Jose is an urban environment. And once again, this might be something that you enjoy or that you like. I kind of like 2 days in San Jose as either a beginning or an end of a trip. One of my favorite, San Jose is a big urban center. So I'm not personally not so interested in the urban center, but there are some beautiful hotels on the outskirts of San Jose. Like my favorite is Bougainvillea, Hotel Bougainvillea. It sits on 10 acres of land that are a manicured garden. So you've got all kinds of plants that are labeled. The food is amazing. The ambiance there is beautiful. It's up in the hills, so it's very refreshing. And this could be, a hotel like this could be a base to take other adventure trips out of San Jose without having to change hotels. But just on the grounds of the hotel, rufous-tailed hummingbird, some of you all have done this with me, blue and gray tanager, rufous-naped wren, rufous-collared sparrow. These are all common just on the grounds of the hotel, and crimson-fronted parakeets, of course, flying in and out. So you could kind of get a nice nature fix in a fairly large hotel, but you wouldn't feel as though you were totally confined with, you know, in the city. So San Jose has some really beautiful hotels on the outskirts that could be nice excursion hotels. So for an example, from San Jose, you could take a day trip up to the Central Highlands. And this would be someplace up near Carrillo. You could even go to the Irazu volcano right over here. So there's some really nice areas right around in this north of San Jose that are only maybe an hour, hour and a half drive away. And there's, you check with the hotel, see what they have to offer. And there's things like the ox cart factory. This is the wheel of an ox cart and is pretty much the symbol of Costa Rican folk art that you'll see all over the country. But there's a place about an hour and a half away from San Jose called La Paz Waterfall Gardens that have 7 waterfalls. So you can do some hiking, places for the children. There's a butterfly house, a mammal house. There's a snake house so people can look at the snakes. It's not a bad place. Neat thing for me is it has some bird feeders, so we can see some different birds like scarlet rump tanager and violet saberwing and purple-throated mountain gem. The black-bellied hummingbird, this is a favorite of mine. It has a matte finish to its throat and doesn't shine like another hummingbird. It's just that black matte, beautiful finish. There we go. And then green crown brilliants, coppery-headed emeralds. So at La Paz Waterfall Garden, in a couple of hours, you could rack up 8 or 9 species of hummingbird, like the green thorntail, because they have feeders around in the gardens, crowned wood nymph. So interesting things that you could do just within the San Jose area. Now let's stretch a little bit more out of the way. And there's an area up near the Arenal volcano and also Monteverdi. This was an area that we just covered on the last trip a week and a half ago. And this is in the low hills of northern Costa Rica. It is a resort area for local Costa Ricans. And so there's a whole lot of infrastructure with hotels, different types of hotels. And you see also a large lake. This area became famous when the Arenal volcano erupted in the 1960s and continued erupting until the early 2000s. I did get a chance to see it erupting for several years on my early trips. So there are hotels built around the edge of the volcano. This is the bottom one is the Arenal Observatory Lodge. This was a place where researchers stayed in this area, and then it gradually started building up into a hotel. And today it's a really, really nice hotel set in gardens once again. So you can photograph birds, explore, hike, that type of thing, all in the shadow of this volcano that's not doing anything right now. It's sleeping right now. But it's a great area, nice temperature, cool, refreshing days, not too cold at night, not too hot during the day. So absolutely beautiful. And as I said, for families, not for me, but for families, you can, kids can go out and ride the ATVs in the mud, and they can horseback ride, and they can zip line. So this is a really popular location for families traveling with children. If you ever think of taking all the kids or all the grandkids on a vacation, this is a very popular destination, the Arenal volcano area. And then about an hour and a half south of there is Monteverdi. And Monteverdi was founded by Quaker conscientious objectors after World War II. They came from Alabama, and they wanted to find a place where they wouldn't have to worry about war again. So they founded, they settled in the community of Monteverdi and started doing, raising cows, and eventually developed a cheese factory, which became very famous. And now their ice cream is to die for, absolutely amazing. So this is a more mountainous area, the mountains are a little bit higher than what they were down in Arenal. Once again, hotels around there, but most of them are family-owned hotels. There's not any of the big chain hotels up in Monteverdi. But there are reasons for going there for us bird watchers. The resplendent quetzal, for instance, is there. So you can see it down in Saguare, which I'll tell you about in a little bit, but you can also see it up in Monteverdi. And here's me a couple of days ago at the Curicancha Reserve. There are all kinds of forested reserves in the Monteverdi area. So you kind of pick one that you like. They all have guides. You reserve your time. A guide takes you and walks with you the entire time if you would like. And so it's nice if you're going by yourself or you're going with a family group, you have somebody who knows the birds, knows what the habitat is. Our guide early in the morning knew exactly where the two-toed sloth was sleeping. So it's nice to have that firsthand knowledge so that you don't have to just kind of bumble around or follow the guidebook. You know, all you've got to do is hire one of the young guides, and they know where everything is. So it's fun. So that was the Monteverdi area right here. And then if you go just a little bit north, this is where we start getting into the Upala area or the Celeste area. And the Celeste is famous for its blue waterfalls and its blue rivers. I will warn you, don't go there during the rainy season because the river is brown during the rainy season. It is not turquoise. So if you go in June, July, and August and September, that's the rainy season, then chances are the river is going to be brown. But this beautiful turquoise river is formed by the minerals reflecting light the minerals are coming out of the volcano. And it's a lovely place. And there are hotels around these turquoise rivers and these turquoise waterfalls. There's a national park up there. Once again, the altitude and the hills make it a refreshing place. Just absolutely lovely place, in my opinion. It's been one of my favorite in the last couple of years to go to. Birds, yeah, it's got great birds up in that area. So barred antshrike, for instance, social flycatcher, the good old silver-throated tanager and blue-gray tanager that we see everywhere. And then just a little bit north of the Celeste area, by day trip. So you could take a transport up to Caño Negro. And at Caño Negro Reserve is low down by the Nicaraguan border. And it's a huge wetland. And it covers a vast amount of territory. This means that it attracts a lot of birds. It also attracts a lot of fishermen to go up there and fish. It's supposedly really good fishing. And there are these little bitty boats that you can contract with and hire, and they take you out into the marsh, just puttering along in the marsh, which gives you a great opportunity to photograph out of the boat. And, you know, great egret with a mud turtle, monkeys all around, kingfishers everywhere. So I really like this Caño Negro. It's a little bit on the hot side, but if you want to see a lot of wildlife from a very comfortable vantage point, it really is a lot of fun. And they have the bigger boats and they have the smaller boats. So you just kind of choose whether you want a small boat or whether you want one of the bigger boats. So leaving the Caño Negro area up in here, I'm going to take you over to Paquie. And once again, a lot of you all that have traveled with me have been to Paquie. And it's another tourist destination for locals in Costa Rica. And the reason that it's a tourist destination is it's lowland forest. So this is wet rainforest in the lowlands. And so there are these different reserves that you can walk through. Once again, you can hire a guide once you get there for a bird watching guide or a hiking guide. You look out over these beautiful rivers through the jungle and you see this, you know, these beautiful still waters. Get on one of those rivers on a small little boat cruise. Once again, you can small boats, big boats. Book it just for yourself or just for your family if that's what you want to do. And this is once again where you can see iguanas and monkeys and kingfishers and all kinds of different wildlife, caimans, crocodiles. So a really interesting place. In this same Paquie area, there is whitewater rafting and there is zip lining and all of the other adventure type activities that a family might enjoy. But you look out over that forest and it's dense, it's thick, and it's full of wildlife and really lets you feel that you're in the tropics. Hotels in this area, there are big hotels, and then there are also small hotels. And one of my favorite hotels right now is the La Quinta in Paquie, small little resort, not real big, family owned. And I love this chalkboard that was in their lobby, the quick little Spanish lesson in 10 seconds in Costa Rica. Everybody says Pura Vida all the time. And so to say hi, you say Pura Vida. To say how are you, you say Pura Vida. To say I'm fine, you say Pura Vida. To say yes, you say Pura Vida. To say bye, you say Pura Vida. Just, you know, a little bit of Costa Rican humor there. But this is a really neat little hotel stuck back in the woods. It's been in the family for about 25 years. And I personally like patronizing these small hotels that are owned by locals, because that means we're supporting the local economy. And of course, all the beautiful birds that are in Paquie area, the blue-gray tanagers, the palm tanagers, the crested guans, the great curassow, the chestnut colored woodpecker. It depends on how deep you're going to go into the jungle, what kind of birds you're going to ultimately find. But it's a good region for going up and exploring birds. Hot, humid, yeah. But definitely worth going up to the Paquie region. And also in Paquie, there are several frog houses and reptile houses, so that you can go in for us photographers, photograph the poison dart frogs like this green and black. You can go in and photograph these for the kids. If you're traveling with friends or family, they get a chance to see them. And this is your chance to see the red-eyed tree frog in a much more controlled environment, so that we can get photos of it. And then of course, always the monkeys, just incredibly loud every single morning. So this is a good area for monkeys as well, and sloths. So a good area for sloths and seeing what sloths are doing. So just a little bit more of the hummingbirds that you can get in this area. And then the birds you can get in this area. So Paquie is definitely a worthwhile destination. And then leaving the Paquie area, we're going to go just a little bit over toward the Caribbean coast to a place called Turialba. And Turialba, once again, it's a local tourist destination for Costa Ricans, whitewater rafting, rappelling, or zip lining. It's as in hiking and horseback riding. It's also a refreshing altitude. So the breezes are nice, the humidity's not too high, the heat during the day is not too bad. And it is an absolutely beautiful place in the Turialba area. Our hotel in that area, that's the only one that I really like to go to, is called Rancho Naturalista. It's been around since the early 1990s, founded by a couple from Berkeley, California. And it's now being run by their daughter. It's a bird lodge. So when you go there, that's what it is. It's a bird watching lodge. But it's really nice in the mornings to come up on this second floor. You see the coffee pot is out there. And those of you who've been there with me know about the coffee pot and the cookies that they put out. And when the birds start coming alive at 5:30 in the morning, this is the place to be. And they have feeders around the area so that you can photograph birds coming to natural perches and attracted by the fruit at the feeders. But here's their famous bird is the snow-capped hummingbird, one of the few places in Costa Rica that you can get this little tiny jewel of a hummingbird. It's only about 1.5 inches long. It's purple with a white head. My husband says it looks like the hummingbird was dipped in Merlot. And that is what color it is the color of Merlot wine. And then rufous-tailed hummingbirds, black-crested coquette coming to the porterweed. Anytime in Costa Rica that you see this porterweed, this is where you go for finding hummingbirds, because all the hummingbirds love this porterweed. And as a photographer, it means that they're going to visit each one of those flowers, which means that the hummingbird's going to stay on that porterweed branch for several seconds, giving us time that we can take a picture of it. Green hermit. There's flowers all over the garden at Rancho Naturalista that attract hummingbirds and birds. So you know you're in a wonderful environment. Bronzy hermit, green-breasted mango. So lots of different opportunities for birds at this hotel, violet-headed hummingbird. And of course, social flycatcher, little guy, always around. So let me take you from Turialba down to another one of those star places, another one of those places that most time on your first visit you want to go to, if not return there on other visits. And that's the Saguare and Talamanca mountain area. The Talamanca Mountains, this mountain ridge right down here in the southern part of Costa Rica, is the highest part of Costa Rica. Some of the mountains go as high as 13,000 feet. And the Talamanca Mountains, when we crest them to go down into the valley, the Saguare Valley, we're at about 11,000 feet. And then the Saguare Valley goes down to about 7,000 feet. I'm affected by altitude. My brain doesn't handle altitude well. And so this is a place where I have to kind of acclimatize because it is so high. You need to wear a fleece. You need to wear your puffy jacket because it is cold at night, not snowing, but it's cold at night in this area. But then this area also has scenery and birds that we don't have anywhere else in Costa Rica. So the Saguare River running through the valley is famous for trout fishing. A lot of anglers from around the world come here to fish. It's beautiful to photograph. My favorite hotel in this area is Trogan Lodge. We've been staying there since our very first trip to Costa Rica years ago. Many of you all stayed at Trogan with us. It has magnificent gardens and lots of hummingbird plants. So meaning that the birds are on site, the hummingbirds are on site. And sometimes we just do a full day at the gardens of Trogan so that people can just relax, acclimatize to the altitude and enjoy the birds in a nice, convenient setting. Very alpine feel to it. Here's another example of the Trogan Lodge. And the cabins have heat in them, so they're nice and warm. So it's a lovely place to stay. And people go there for the quetzal. The Saguare Valley is famous for getting the quetzal or possibly getting the quetzal. This is a bird that you go start trying to find from November through March when it's starting to nest or going to nest. And then other than that, you're not going to see it. The male has these beautiful long plumes. One trip, unfortunately, the only thing we saw was the plume sticking out of the nest hole. We never saw the bird itself, just the tail feathers sticking out of the nest hole. Other trips, we've seen it a fairly good amount. But other birds that you might find in this alpine area, yellow-thighed finch, fiery-throated hummingbird. This used to be very unusual and it's becoming much more common with that beautiful throat pattern that it has. Scintillant hummingbird with its orange throat pattern, volcano hummingbird, small 1.5 inch long hummingbird with its gray throat, green violet ear, beautiful hummingbird. And then the Talamanca hummingbird used to be called the magnificent hummingbird, but it was split from that magnificent hummingbird that we had here in the United States. Magnificent in its own right. And then they have the Acorn Woodpecker that was separated from the United States by the last ice age. So they have a remnant population down there of the Acorn Woodpecker that we see in the Western United States, white-throated mountain gem. So great place, Saguare Mountain or Saguare Valley. So the Saguare Valley is right down in this area. And now I'm going to take you up here to the Guanacaste area, kind of a new favorite of mine. Hot and dry. Notice on the map that there's a lot of yellow up there. The Guanacaste area is dry. It's not wet, drippy rainforest or cloud forest. It's dry, which gives you a whole different types of habitat. So in that Guanacaste area, we have a lot of cattle farms and a lot of ranches, but we also have the Gulf of Nicoya that creates this beautiful inland bay around the Guanacaste area. Several hotels scattered around there, not away from the beach so that we're not so in the mainstream of the people going to the beach resorts, but there's several little quiet boutique hotels scattered around the Gulf of Nicoya And this is where you would get your cinnamon hummingbird, your white-throated magpie jay. If you're not careful, he'll steal the toast off your breakfast platter. Beautiful bird, really big, and nice to photograph. Orange-chin parrot. And neat thing about Guanacaste, it's so open that we get some beautiful sunsets and get to play around with the sunset at night from overlooks, or in the evening for overlooks. But the area around the Rincon Viejo volcano, which has erupted twice within the last year, is this tall grassland and very dry and really, really warm, which gives us just a different environment when we're visiting Costa Rica than what we've had in some of the other places. Cecropia trees, of course. And this is a great place to see the keel-billed toucan. So, you know, different birds once again, but just a great place to see things like the keel-billed toucan. And then the last place that I'm going to take you on our adventure tonight is down to the Osa Peninsula. And some of you, like Hope, went to the Osa Peninsula with us in years past. To get to Osa, you take a small plane from San Jose down to Osa. Otherwise, you drive, and if you drive, it takes you about 8 hours to get there. It's one of the most remote locations in Costa Rica because most people do end up flying there. And it's really, really warm and really, really humid. But then there are species down there that we're not going to see anywhere else. And there's things down there that we can do that we're not going to do anywhere else. So in the Osa Peninsula, for instance, your Scarlet Macaws might end up waking you up in the morning, making all kinds of racket. And when a flock of Scarlet Macaws comes in and starts eating the palm seeds, you know that there's a flock of Scarlet Macaws because they do make a lot of noise. Same thing with the monkeys. There's several species of monkeys down there. This is a white-faced capuchin monkey. So it's common down in the Osa Peninsula to see the monkeys. Sunsets, of course, are magnificent because you're way out over the Pacific Ocean. It's really isolated, so there doesn't turn out to be any air pollution or anything like that. So a very fresh environment. But, you know, it is hot. And that means that during the middle of the day, you're going to do like the monkeys and just take a siesta, find yourself a hammock somewhere and wait it out till it cools off just a little bit. This is a place where we stay, Bosque de Cabo, or we've stayed, Bosque de Cabo. You notice that it's got thatched roofs and swimming pool and that type of thing. It was a comfortable lodge. Even though I spent most of my time in short sleeves and short pants because it's pretty warm and it's pretty muggy, but there's always something going on in terms of nature down in the Osa Peninsula. And again, one of those really isolated places still left on this earth. Blue-capped manakin in the forest. This is a little round bird. So when you see the little round bird perched on the branch, it's, you know, usually a manakin. And so of all these places that I've given you, somebody would ask me, well, what's your favorite place? And I can't really tell you what is my favorite place because my mood changes and my desires change for what I want to see. And when you go to Costa Rica, and I hope you do go to Costa Rica, I hope you would consider the idea of just hitting a few ecosystems instead of trying to cover the entire thing. If you cover the entire thing, you're going to end up spending all your time in the van or, you know, in driving, which is one way to see Costa Rica, but it really is better to get out and actually experience it. The next trip that I do with Strabo Tours, we're going to start here in San Jose. And we're going to do the Paquie, Turialba, and then down to the Saguare area. So the next trip that we do is covering this area right in here. That's the 2023 trip. So all kinds of stuff to see. And definitely, if you're going to go, just make sure you don't bite off too much. Otherwise, you might find yourself hanging off the stem like this little guy and being totally exhausted instead of just enjoying yourself. Okay. Questions? You feel free to unmute and ask me questions.
Kathy, if I'm a little bit more interested in photographing bigger animals like the sloths and monkeys and such, which areas would you recommend most?
So the sloths and the monkeys, that's a really, really good area for the bigger stuff up in the Paquie area because it's lowlands. There are not going to be as many of those when they're up in the highlands. There are along the coast several hotels where they do allow people to feed the wild monkeys. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it is a treat for small children to be able to see the monkeys that close. And so for things like the sloths and the monkeys and around any hotel, you're going to get the agouti. It's a big kind of rat looking creature. There are some locations also where the tapirs are walking around. It's like a big pig. Quite an interesting mammal to see. So that Paquie area would be one of my favorites for the mammals.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about mosquitoes?
Mosquitoes, everybody always asks about that. Okay, it's an environment in balance. There are tons of birds. There are tons of lizards and insects that eat the other insects. So it's a place in balance. I get more mosquito bites going out into my yard here in Houston than I ever do in Costa Rica. Now, 2 weeks ago, we went running through a whole bunch of tall grass and we all got chiggers, but you know, that's what you get for running through tall grass. But it was definitely worth it because we got some cool things in that tall grass. But otherwise, mosquitoes, I don't really get bothered by mosquitoes. Sometimes in the evenings, there'll be some no-see-ums, but otherwise it's not a bad environment for bugs. So I just tell people to bring a tube of Benadryl or a tube of cortisone, and don't worry about spraying the whole body because you're just not going to be around that many bugs. Other questions?
Kathy, it's Nancy Langer. I've taken.
Hey, hi Nancy, how you doing?
How are you? Marie
good.
told me about your Zoom. Marie DeTulio, she's
Yeah.
taken some, but I've taken 2 of your trips, Kathy, and
You have.
they're wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
taught me a lot, even though
Thanks.
I was struggling with my camera equipment. But anyhow,
Yeah.
they were terrific. And Willie Alfaro, we're Facebook friends.
Mhm. Yes.
He's
Yes.
a great guide. He's wonderful.
Yes, he has been my guide since he's been my guide for 18 years. And I posted a picture the other day of Willie and me when we were young. So we've been together for a long time, and that's one of the beautiful things too about the Strabo tours is many times we have been traveling with the same guide for years, and they are friends.
Yes.
And they know what we want.
And you're a wonderful teacher.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I like to do that. Okay, other questions? Thanks, Nancy.
Mhm.
I have a
Kathy, is
question.
there- Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, this is Bryant. How much of your shooting is with tripods and how much are you not using the tripod, or can you use tripods on those boats?
You know, it's interesting, Bryant. We were talking about that on the last trip. 2005 or 2004, the very first trips to Costa Rica, I was always on a tripod because it was the beginning of the digital world. We all took a tripod last trip, and I used it one time, and that was to do a star trail at night. So one guy who was using a really, really long lens used a monopod. But most of the time you do not have to be on a tripod. There are some places though where we go where, and Ruby, you know about these places. A couple of y'all know that if you've been with me to these, where we're in the dining room of the hotel photographing birds at a feeder. And so we're spending most of the day in the dining room of the hotel photographing birds coming to the feeders, natural feeders. So we'll use a tripod for that. Just take the weight off your shoulders.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Patty, you had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if there are any other airports that you can fly into from the US besides San Jose. If I wanted to do that northwestern area, is there some place to fly into there?
Yeah, we're starting to fly into and sometimes out of Liberia. And Southwest flies into Liberia, JetBlue flies into Liberia, Air Alaska flies into Liberia, United flies into Liberia. And we're using that now as a small airport. It's pretty big, but we're using it as a small airport. And so some of our trips now we'll fly into San Jose and out of Liberia, or if we're going to stay totally up in the north, we'll fly in and out of Liberia. And it just gives us a little bit smaller airport experience instead of the big airport in San Jose.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Yeah. Other questions?
No, but thank you for this class. It was fun.
You are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you very much.
Great intro, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
ready to go back next year.
Oh, yeah.
Kathy, when is that next, that 2003 trip?
It's in February, and we're going in February because the dry season of Costa Rica is November through March. March is spring break and usually more crowded. We used to go in March, and now we have the ability to go in February. And then anything from May through September is the rainy season. And it's very difficult to travel and photograph in the rain because it really is raining all the time.
Don't you usually do a couple of trips to Costa Rica every year?
I do. And it's with COVID, it's been one of those safe places we can go. So we've done 2 trips. I personally do a private trip there. Myself, I'll take a friend down, something like that. So for me, I just like going there. And if I can do 2 trips in a year to different regions, and then that's perfect for me.
Makes me want to go to Costa Rica.
It is, it's an easy country to travel in. It's a very easy country. Yeah.
Freaking,
Other questions?
Kathy, this is Jackie.
Yeah. Hey, Jackie.
Hi, I was just going to interject that I'm so glad you are going in February next year, because I never liked it when you went in March on spring break because the prices were so expensive for airfare.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
In February, it will be back where it normally should be.
Yeah. And for those of you all that haven't met the voice, that's Jackie from Strabo Tours. I suspect any of you all who have traveled have got the phone call from Jackie, so you're used to her voice.
There really is a Jackie.
There really is a Jackie, yes.
I like to see
There
the
is a
face to
Jackie,
go with
and
the
I've actually
voice.
been to Costa Rica with Kathy.
Yeah, we did. We went together. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
All you crazy birders.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If Jackie was leading the trip to Costa Rica, it would probably be different than the trip I lead, but probably the same hotels, but it would be a little bit different. Yeah. And
Well,
that's
I was going to say, you and I have different thermostats.
Yeah, we do. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. And that's something I want to emphasize about a Strabo tour is that even though we go to the same destination, because there are other tour guides that go to Costa Rica besides me, most of the time we have a different emphasis. So Karen, for instance, does a lot of iPhone photography and a lot of really creative photography on her Ireland trips. So the various guides, photo guides that Jackie has pulled into the organization, each one of us adds a different flavor to a trip because we all have our own personalities and what we're concentrating on.
I was going to say, I was in Costa Rica only once in 2011, and I did a little bit of bird photography. I'm getting better at it, but it's not my main thing. Your work is beautiful. And I just get the feeling that many of the people on the Zoom call have been with you. But I know that Kathy's a very good teacher. We share a number of the same students and travelers who go with you, who come with me.
That's right.
Like Pam and Bruce Remick have been with you many times. And one of the most fun things I did there didn't really have anything to do with birds. It was the first and only time that I did the zip line.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm a little older now, but that was, that was like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was very safe. And
Well, Karen, was that on your bucket list?
no, not at all. But everybody in the group was going to do it. What's cool about doing it in Costa Rica is you do it at the what do you call the top of the tree area? The canopy. Like we have a zip line here in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, where I live. I've never been on it, but we sometimes see them when we're on I-70 in Colorado. The zip lines are like running right next to the highway. Well, who wants to do that? You want to go on a zip line someplace where it's natural and beautiful, and even in the group that I was in, we all had different interests. I had just recently gotten my first iPhone, and I was doing a lot of hipstamatic. It's an app, hipstamatic photography, and other people were serious flower photographers and bird photographers. And so on any of these trips, even though Kathy spoke so much about the birds, if you haven't yet been with her to Costa Rica, but birds are not your main thing, you'd still find beauty everywhere. You'd go for a walk, the plants are fabulous, and the landscapes and the people are friendly. And I agree with you about the food. The food was very good. So yeah, I highly recommend that. It's a wonderful place. And they also have good surfing. We have a son who's been there a few times.
Yeah. Well, Mark and Jan are on this call, and Mark's the photographer, but Jan's the iPhone, and Jan found plenty of things to photograph and keep herself busy with, even though she wasn't necessarily the main bird photographer. So I think that's the important thing about the stray boat trips is that there's something for everybody.
Yep.
And
Well,
just
Kathy, when you're talking about there's something for everybody, could you please, where would I find, again, like this is my very first time, I don't know anybody. So where would I find a range of prices for what this would cost to go on this trip?
Go on the Stray Boat Tour site.
Okay.
And you'll find them. And so the prices are all listed. So you'll
that's
see
inclusive, hotel, everything.
Jackie's very good about, she'll tell you, that covers your hotels and 12 meals or something like that. But usually you're paying your own hotel, you're paying your own airfare. So she's very good about telling you what's included and what's not included.
So you have a cost. Wait, please, be clear. So you pay a fee for the trip and then your airfare is on top of that?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And what you might do, Mia, is you might give Jackie a call and tell her what your price range is, and she could easily tell you what she has on the books that could be in your price range.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy?
Yes, next question.
Kathy?
Yes. Wait a minute. Alan's talking.
What kind of lenses were you using to get those nice pictures of the birds?
Okay, so in most of these, Alan, I was shooting with either a 100 to 400 or a 100 to 500. So almost, and then the last trip exclusively, I carried the 100 to 500 with the Canon R. And so it's for Nikons, it's the 80 to 400. It's the new 100 to 500 for Nikons. So we're not having to take really, really long lenses. Any other questions? Oh, and by the way, too, just in case you've ever wondered, in Costa Rica, most people speak English. And so you don't have to worry about not being able to speak the language. Most people in Costa Rica speak English. So they'll at least help you out. And in my case, they correct my grammar in Spanish. Yeah. Other questions?
Thank you, Kathy. This was excellent.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
this is
you
really
all.
good.
Excellent
you.
presentation.
Thanks very much. I thank you for joining me. It is recorded. And so if you know anybody who's missed it, let Jackie know and we'll let you know when it's posted. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
Kathy.
everybody.
Good
See
night.
you
Thank you.
Good
Ed.
night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you and
Thank
good
you,
night.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. You are welcome.
See you next week.
Okay. Bye, Ed. Bye, Ruby. Bye,
Bye.
Pat. Bye, Barbara. Get better with your shingles. Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. I hated, I feel like I'm hiding or
Jackie?
something.
You feel like you're hiding?
Yeah, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Kathy.
That's a great
I'm so
overview
glad.
of all of Costa Rica.
Yeah, thank you.
Kathy?
It's good. Yes, Tommy.
Kathy, do they have any Burger Kings down there?
They do in the city. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
Taco Bell too, you know.
Oh, okay. Wanna make
Oh, it's
sure-
you. Your voice sounds different.
Yeah.
How are you?
Okay, how are you doing?
I am good. Your voice sounds different this way. Yeah.
Oh, okay, probably just sounds different, over this. Well, good.